Hello everyone, Krydax here, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we now are in control of the moon. Well, we're not in control of it, but we're orbiting it at least. So, in our grand plan, we have launched the lunar orbiter, and we have finished the early Earth observational satellites program. And so we got a couple more tasks that we have on our list here. We want to collect science from the orbit of the moon, which we are doing some of with our Cobalt 3 here. It's actually transmitting as we speak. Ah, come back. What is it transmitting? Cosmic ray science, infrared radiometry. So let's look at those bad boys. Also, yeah, here, infrared radiometry. Moon space high, there's a total of 16 data units we can get from that, and then infrared radiometry from moon. Ooh. All sorts of juicy data that we can get. Only a total of about 3.3 per biome, but that adds up to a lot. It looks like the moon has 6, 7, 8 biomes, and that's without going over the poles. It's possible it has more. And then magnetic scan we need around the moon. Though that's not that much. Now that I'm looking at it, that's not that much data. Mass spectrometry. It's really hard to say. Micromedia. I mean, we need all of these, right? We need orbital perturbation. That one's huge, right? That's a 10-year experiment, but it has such a huge science value. So if we could get an orbital perturbation around the moon, that spends half its time in space low and half its time in space high, right? And that way we get both of these, though then it will take 20 years for it to finish. So I guess that's the downside. But then we can also, I think we already did pressure scan at the moon, right? No, we don't have pressure scan at space low yet, fully. So we need that. So yeah, I mean, we would probably want to collect space low just with all the other science, and then spend most of the time maybe in space high. Telemetry, we do have all the data from the moon there. Temperature scan, we have the data from, wait, no, this is not the moon. Yeah, wait. Okay, temperature scan, we also need space low. So yeah, we don't have a lot of stuff from space low. Yeah, we still have a lot of data we can collect from space low. So what we'd want is we'd want something that spends most of its time in space high, is in a polar orbit, but also goes into space low to collect the various data that we need somewhere along its orbit, and then eventually it'll get us all the data. And that'll add up to a ton of science. So that'll be great. And that could even be this contract, and we could even get paid for it. So that would be kind of nice. Let me pull up real quick. I don't have it open yet. What was the in space low? Sorry, 1 second. I'm opening up my browser. Where's the tab? Come on, where is it? There. Space high low science body information. Alright. The moon border is at 250 kilometers. Okay. So that's easy. Anyway, that's all besides the point, because what I've been doing, and we might have to move 61 orbital rocketry up a little bit, because what I've been doing is working on a craft that can accomplish all of these. I went ahead and took all of them just so I could test if one satellite could do all of them, and it can. So if we look at our tracking station, we can see where all of these places are, and it's a lot easier if we turn off probes Wow, I have a lot of debris that we need to delete. I didn't realize we had that much debris. And I hit show network. And then those all disappear. And I think I can even turn off. No, I didn't mean to change my launch site. Whoops. Definitely still want Cape Canaveral. I wanted to turn off the visuals. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now we can just see the places like Kashima and Vladivostok and Moscow, Gunhili and Plymur Bedu. And there's nothing on the south side of the planet at all. And by south, I mean southern hemisphere. Point Mugu, Andover. And that's it. So then these are our different options here. So we need a Paris to Moscow. Wait, did I not see Paris? Where's Paris? What? Oh, sorry. Plymur Bordeaux is Paris, apparently. Look, I never heard of this place. My geography is not A+, okay? It is more like D- level geography. So that's that one. Soviet is Moscow to Vladivostok, which is over here. The transatlantic is Andover to Gunhili and Plymur Bordeaux. Plumir? I don't know how to pronounce that. But that's going to be this one. Which, what's important, I'll get into the math of this later. I did a lot of math. Is kind of the angle that the longitude forms. Like, how far away are they on the globe? Matters a lot for your satellite. We'll get into that in a minute, but basically, the further away these are, the harder it is to get a good angle, and the more you need your satellite to be further away from Earth to be able to have a good angle to both. Because the way real antennas works is if you're at like a tangent angle, like Gunhili right here, you notice how it just appeared? We would not have a connection with it, even though I can see it, because the angle's so low that the atmosphere really jacks it up. So you need your angle to really be like, ideally 10 or more degrees, and then the atmosphere isn't doing that much. But to have a 10-degree angle on that, you know, you need it to be well in view, and then that means you need to be zoomed out further. And by that, I mean the satellite needs to be further away from Earth. So that's a whole thing. Anyway, Trans-Pacific is then going to be Point Mugu to Kashima. And that one has the biggest angle. Like, you can see that angle is well over 90 degrees here. Point Mugu to Kashima. But the good news is they're a little bit lower latitudes. So what I did is a lot of math. You know, there's the math of like how far. Let's imagine the satellite is like where the camera is right now. There's a math of like how far is it to something that I'm pointing up towards on the sphere. And so you kind of take the circle from the side, and then you take the line, and then you figure out, okay, what's all the, you know, the angles, and it's a lot of trigonometry. But then it gets a lot trickier when you think about, okay, not what is my angle to something up from me, but what's my angle to something up and over on a sphere? And then doubly so, what is that thing's angle to me compared to its tangent line on the sphere? Because again, like I said, that needs to be greater than like 5 or 10 degrees. Ideally 10 degrees for the atmosphere to not mess with your real antennas too much. It adds a lot of interference. And on top of all that, you know, you need to be at a good distance. So you need to measure the distance. So I did set up, let me see if I can pull it up for you guys here. I finally set it up on my spreadsheet, and this is the first time you're going to get to see my spreadsheet. Don't judge me. And if you judge me, then, well, I'll judge you. Haha. Where is it? KSP Calcs. Let's see. I don't know if it's... Give me one moment here. Okay. Yeah, it's all sized weird. Give me a moment. So here we go. So here is the grand sheet that you've heard me speak of. Basically, it's a whole mess. I mean, look at all this nonsense. Look at all this nonsense. And a lot of it is actually built for modded KSP, not RP-1. So like this up here was for when I was using ComNet. Like this is how the math on ComNet works. And you see I've got all these formulas and stuff. Over here is figuring out like if I want to put satellites in orbit and have access to relays on the ground, like math for that. This is the main chunk of the math where I can plug in, like if I want to orbit Earth at 145 kilometers, this will give me my speed at apoapsis and periapsis. This is the orbital period. There's the escape velocity, if such a thing is of interest. And if we wanted to change to, say, a 25 million meter orbit, these are the delta V costs here and here, and that's the total of them as for how much that maneuver would cost. So that's an easy way for me to get my delta V numbers. Now, there's all sorts of other math going on. Like this is for figuring out if I have a mothership with multiple satellites, how much delta V do those need to get into a certain orbit around the planet you're trying to get contact with. That's all sorts of things. But this, no, that's not what I was looking at. Sorry, where am I looking at? Where's my little thing? Ah, over here. This is the thing that I worked on recently for this particular math problem. So if I know the beam width of my antenna, and I know the planet's radius, and I know how high up the satellite is, and I know where my city is that I'm trying to be in touch with, and the longitude here is not, I'm using that word in quotes because it's not really the city's longitude. What I'm measuring is how far off of center am I pointing to that city. So if that was 90 degrees, that would mean like the city's straight to the left from the Earth's center compared to where I'm standing. That's not actually the longitude. But what you can do is if you're trying to connect two cities, you could take the average of their longitude and plug that in here, and you get kind of what the angles will look like when you're in between those two cities. So that's still useful for these satellite contracts. Anyway, these are just numbers that are used for the calculating. These are unimportant. So these are the big numbers right here. So this gives you the actual distance to that spot on the planet that your comms will need. The off-bore angle is like your radar dish is pointed straight at the center of the Earth. So how many degrees off center is your angle? And that matters a lot because the beam width, and by the way, this is the diameter of the 3 decibel cone. So really you only get 9 degrees off center before you lose 3 decibels, and you only get 18 degrees off center before you can't have contact at all. It approaches 10 decibel loss at 18.29, and once you go past 18.29, it immediately goes to a 200 decibel loss. So you cannot go past this number no matter what. Even if, I mean, I guess if you added 200 decibel strength, but I don't think you can even make it go that high. So anyway, so yeah, these are the numbers that are relevant. So you've got your off-bore angle, which in this case is 11.65 for this theoretical city that's at this position. And the angle of attack for the planet is telling you the station on the planetary ground is only at a 6-degree angle to point at your satellite, which means atmosphere losses will be high. I don't know the math on how, oh, by the way, just so you can see the formulas, because it's kind of fun. Oh, no, it's right there. Never mind, you could already see it. Yeah, these formulas are nuts, right? Anyway, the math is nuts for all this, you know, so much trig, so many, it's mostly just trig and distance formula though. You know, it is high school level math, but it's a lot of it, and it gets really in the weeds. But yeah, no, there's no, you know, calculus here. There's none of that. And then this is just doing the math on how many decibels will you lose for the angle that you're pointing off center. Because remember, your radar dish is pointed towards the center of Earth. And so in this case, you're going to lose 5 decibels from this 11.6 degree, which means that you're basically, what you could do is you could plug in this distance, but then you need to be 5 decibels more powerful than that, because that's what you'll lose for being at a weird angle. if that makes sense. So that way I kind of have an easy way to guesstimate using the antenna planner. So that's all the math we did. By the way, this is an approximation of what the game code actually does for decibel loss. The game code has a bunch of linear points, but I plugged them into Desmos, and it turns out this function, which is a logistic function, approximates it almost perfectly, like within a % or two. So this is going to be pretty dang close to accurate. And then, of course, at the end, I just add 1 more decibel to be safe, and we're good to go. So that, I just wanted to show you guys kind of all this because, you know, I love the math and I find it really interesting. And so we worked it all out. These were just a bunch of numbers I needed in the like when I was solving it on paper. And so I kind of calculated those first, and then these are results of these being further calculated on. I'm sure I could just get the explicit formula to go from these numbers to these numbers, but it was easier this way. So that's how we did it. And yeah, there you go. And then this was just me comparing some numbers of like, is it cheaper to actually be 50 million meters away? Because then your angle, your off-bore angle will be smaller. And that means you won't have as much of a decibel loss. But the problem is you need more decibels because you're so much further away. So there is a sweet spot where you're close enough that the off-bore angles, you're close enough that the distance isn't huge, but you're also far enough that the off-bore angle is a little smaller, and there's obviously, you know, some perfect distance, which is harder to calculate. I'm sure there's another formula for that, which I'm not gonna do, but I just wanted to show you guys this because I thought it was cool. So anyway, all of that resulted in, well, honestly, nothing, because you can experimentally design these pretty easily to just see if they work. But it results in me having better understanding, and I value understanding. So I designed the locust. The locust is my attempt at a more modern approach at rocketry, which is I want an LV that's consistent, LV launch vehicle, that's consistent and can put a certain amount of weight into orbit. And so what I did, this is just a very simple 2-stage to orbit situation here with boosters. So the first thing is, let's get into the design of the satellite. I kind of messed around for a while, and we ended up with, I wanted something with near Earth control. I considered deep space, but deep space weighs more, and at that point I could just add more solar panels. And deep space also costs a lot more. So I think it just ended up being, I don't know, it felt like pretty similar or even cheaper to just do near Earth avionics and just have more power. So I've got some big solar panels here, nothing fancy with those. They're the Mariner 10 style, and they're tech level 2 right now. And they can provide up to 90 watts, which is more than we need, but I want this to last for a while, right? And so we need it to still provide all the power we need after it's been orbiting for a year. So that's why they're overpowered by a bit. Then we have our Communotron. Now, again, we mathed out some of the numbers. So if we look at our antenna planning, we already know that, for example, we need to connect, what was it? We need to connect, well, I already know the numbers on these, or the Soviet television. I don't know the actual latitude and longitude of these other ones. You have to look it up in the game files, which is kind of not my favorite. But if you look up the latitude and longitude, then you can get kind of the average longitude or the difference. But basically, Vladivostok, there's about a 90 degree, or wait, I wrote it down somewhere. There's a 93% degree longitude difference. So if I were to type in like 50 for my longitude, that's pretty safe. And then, like we said, we're gonna put the satellite at 25 million meters, and so that gives me, and Vladivostok is at a latitude of 45 degrees, but Moscow's at a latitude of 55, so I'll just plug in 55 because that's the more conservative number, and I get the answer of 29.6 million meters. So I plug in 29.6 here, and you can see that I have an absurd amount of connections still. Did I do that wrong? No, I didn't do that wrong, because, right, we have to account for the off-bore loss. So my spreadsheet also tells me that I'm going to lose 5 decibels for the angle that I'm pointing at, because again, this is pointed towards the center of Earth, not towards Moscow. So I gotta imagine this is like 30. And then at 30, you can see we are starting to drop down. And in fact, when I drop down to 26, we actually don't have enough megabits per second, because we need to be 24 megabits per second. So it's 27 is the absolute minimum if you didn't have any off-bore losses and you didn't have any atmospheric losses. So I probably only need to add 1 decibel for atmospheric losses, but I'm going to add 2, and then I'm going to add 5 for the off-bore angle, and that's how I got to the number I got at. Now, I don't know why this is set to tech level 3. I don't have tech level 3 yet. Wait. No, I do have tech level 3. Hold on. Have I just not purchased it? I think I just haven't purchased tech level 3. Is that what's going on here? I think that's what's going on, because we upgraded the thing to level 4. Yeah, we just need to purchase it. Oh, and thankfully unlock credit goes towards it, because we don't even have 20 grand. Do I need to purchase solar panel? No, that won't be until we're done with it. Do I need to purchase, what else do we need to purchase? I always forget. We also need to purchase RCS, but we've already got that. And we need to purchase fairing density. Aha. There is something that we need to purchase. Ooh, I wonder how much weight that will save me. Now that we can reduce the stringer mass. Alright, let's find out. 9106. It goes down to... Oh, that's on... Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't change much. 159 kilograms from 171 kilograms. I mean, it saves us like 20 kg. It's better than nothing. Couple kg. But it also lets our structure be lighter. So instead of 199, it's 183. So there you go. Save a few kilograms all over the place. Okay, anyway, back to the actual science of this. What else did we need to talk about? So yeah, that's where we got 35 dBm. Why is this on UHF? I'm so sorry. I don't... Oh, because I went down and then back up? But I didn't save it that way. This is supposed to be on L band, because L band is the band we need to get in touch with Moscow. Yeah, Moscow showed up here. It wouldn't have shown Moscow if it wasn't on L band already, so I don't know what happened there. But anyway, you know, at a distance of 30 million meters, which is safe, you know, we're fine. So that's where we got all that. I just wanted a cool looking little probe here. So this is just the isogrid tank. That just looks neat. Holding HTP for my RCS. RCS, I decided to go with an interesting idea. I was like, how can we not need 8 RCS thrusters around this whole thing if we want it to be balanced? And I went with this idea of... So let me make these a little bigger because they're so hard to see when they're tiny. So if I have the two-way style, then I would need 8 of them, right? Because if I only... Like basically if we want to tilt the top towards the left, I need this thruster, but then if I want to tilt the top towards the right, I need this thruster. But the problem is that gives me no ability to tilt left or right on the top here. So then you end up needing 4 on the top, 4 on the bottom, that's 8 thrusters. Even though you don't need very much power, you do need 8 thrusters to be balanced. So I was like, there's gotta be a way to fix that. And there is. It's a 3-way with the other thruster pointing out, which is this. So with just 2 of these, you can get both directions, right? Because if I want the top to go over, now we can thrust out that way, pew, or thrust out that way, which will push the top to the left, or we can push the top to the left this way or this way with these 2 thrusters. Obviously, it has more control over one of these directions than the other. Like it has because it has 2 thrusters if it wants the top to go this way, but it only has 1 thruster if it wants the top to go left or right this way. But either way, we're not worried about that. So we don't. So basically 4 thrusters can get you balanced attitude control. So that's what I did here. That's this guy, and this guy down here, you'll notice has a 4th because I need ullage. And I discovered ullage has a required amount of thrust, or probably acceleration, and I had too little. With just this thruster providing 0.002 kilonewtons, it did not provide enough acceleration to give ullage to my engine here. And so I had to add a couple more that I made a little bit bigger, but only one-way thrusters. And those 2 are mirrored as well, and that's just to provide ullage for the ignition. Now, let's move on to the actual... Oh, by the way, this is not a procedural decoupler, because those are way too heavy. Instead, it's a tiny hollow inner stage, and then a cone structure. So from there, I think I've covered all of the important bits. The avionics is just near-Earth avionics that can control 2 tons, because that's the weight. Well, I guess it's not quite 2 tons, but figured I'd go with rounding. That's the amount that we could have. I couldn't quite get 2 tons to orbit, so we didn't. And by the way, my maneuver, according to the spreadsheet, is... once you're in orbit, you need another 3717 delta V. That's what this is right here. So 3717, you can see we have 3910, so we have plenty of delta V to get into the proper orbit if we've already gotten to orbit. Obviously, we're going to burn into a circular or elliptical orbit, so we're going to use some of this delta V in the process of getting to orbit, but you can just add the cost. So you kind of feel like you need basically a launch vehicle that's capable of taking this thing to low Earth orbit, and then you'll have enough to get to the 25 million orbit. So I don't know if that all made sense. I hope it was helpful. Let's talk about the engines. So I went through, again, it's like we don't have that many engines to pick from that are effective. We've got the RDO 109, but the problem with that is it uses liquid oxygen, and I don't want to deal with boil off. So we're not doing that. And then I was like, I need a light engine for this probe, because this whole probe doesn't weigh that much. I mean, the whole thing is like, if I can grab this off, the whole thing is only 211 kilograms. So I was like, I need a lighter engine that can throw a lot of delta V onto a pretty light probe. And I don't want to use solid motors, and ideally I have something that can restart. Because if I have something that can restart, then I can use part of this stage for the creating the elliptical part of the orbit, and then I can use the rest of it to circularize. And that's just something we hadn't been able to do before. So I was like, what engines do we have that can have multiple ignitions? Well, there's the Juno 4 6K engine. The problem with this guy is the reliability is crap, and it needs high pressure tanks. And high pressure tanks weigh a lot more, right? We've already talked about that. So that one was not the best option, but it is an option. Then there's the AJ10 series mid, which has infinite ignitions, but also needs high pressure tanks. And then there is the AJ10 early, which I'm not going to worry about because that's just worse in this case. And then there's the Agena, the XLR-81, and it weighs a little bit more than these other two, coming in at 100 kilograms. And it has a pretty low ISP. Oh, we have a slightly upgraded version once we get to 61 orbital rocketry. But it's not that different. Like, if you actually look at the differences here, it's mostly 265 ISP, 265, 276. So there's a pretty marked difference to the BA5. You get more ISP and more burn time, but the BA7, boom, 2 ignitions and 285 vacuum delta V and up to 2 minutes of burn time. So like the BA7 is when the Agena gets really good. Also, if you look at the reliability for these various ones, like the reliability is pretty low on all of them except the BA1. The BA1 has good reliability, and then this is bad reliability, but then good reliability on the BA7 again. Not perfect when you're at 0 data units. There's a 5% chance of failure on the full burn time, and there's a 5% chance of failure to ignite, which really means 10% because we're gonna have to ignite it twice. So there might be 2 of these launches, but I'm willing to kind of start collecting data units for this engine. So anyway, that's the first stage. That's the best engine I could find for the job. These other ones were just too heavy. Though, okay, we're gonna talk about this in a second, but the RD-119 is a freaking beast. It is just nuts. So look at that ISP, 362 ISP, and it has a TWR of 60, which is quite decent. Plus it has 2 ignitions. Like, this thing is just a total workhorse. So I'm actually now wondering, like, would it just be better to use the RD-119 for the upper stage too? I hadn't even considered it until literally just now. Yeah, that's just way more Delta V. It looks bad though. I don't like that it looks bad. But the RD-119 is just busted. It's so strong. But it just doesn't look good. I don't know. But I mean, we get more Delta V for a lighter weight. That's only 1357, and we have 4200, well, 41,500 Delta V. And this one's only 3910. Wait, did I say it weighs less? 1569 kilograms. Yeah, 1357. So the fuel is less dense for the RD-119. That's why it weighs less. And it weighs a lot less. Good gravy. Man, the Agena kind of sucks, but I want to use it. It's what I designed. I'm gonna stick with it. This is a decision that is... It makes it feel more fair, but that's illogical because I'm using... I'm using the RD-119 right here, so it's not like I'm even sticking with the US, you know, NASA stuff. I'm clearly using a Russian engine right here, but for somehow that feels unreasonable to use it right here as well. Don't ask me why. It makes sense to me. That's what I'm going with. Anyway, this launch vehicle is what I'm going to use in the future to take up to 1,600 kilograms to orbit. 1.6 tons to low Earth orbit. Boom. This is the launch vehicle for it. Like, that's how I want to start kind of doing these missions. And I did a little bit of coloring. It's not the most interesting color, but a little bit of blue and gray I thought looked good. Yeah, so that's the first stage. Here's the avionics for the lower 2 stages. It is pretty simple. It's just a 60-ton controller, which I think is already tooled even. Oh, but it's in 5. Is the in 4 version already tooled? Might be. Yeah, I guess I can look here. In 4, 58 tons by 1.8 meters. So what can I get away with here? I wonder if I can get away with 60 tons. That says no, I cannot. No, the tooling cost is tiny. So you can tell when it's just a tooling cost due to length versus diameter versus tonnage. Because diameter, you'll notice, will incur a medium tooling cost, 1.3 thousand. But then if I change the tonnage too much, boom, 12,000 for a 70 ton. So it looks like I can do, yeah, right at 60 tons. Okay, that's perfect. So then we'll configure that. We'll reduce the power a little bit to like 200 kilojoules. And there we go. So then I don't have to pay tooling cost for that because we've kind of already made such a thing. And I don't think one tier of upgrading the avionics is worth that much. It probably cost me a couple Delta V just now. I didn't actually notice. But yeah, so now we've got the good old RD-119, which, as we already talked about, does require... Did I talk about this? It requires 1961 orbital rocketry. So I cannot build this craft until we have it, because I also need 1961 orbital rocketry for my Aegina upgrade. So that's kind of a big deal. And then the final bottom stage, whatever you want to call it, the first stage is just a big fat LR-43. Sorry, LR-89. I guess it kind of upgrades into the 89. There are a few options at this stage, right? We've got the LR-87, which is doubled up for this one. Like, this is a double LR-87. But I didn't want to use something that big. I was really trying to see if we could get under 60 tons, because then I can use my smaller launch complex. Though, I don't really know. I guess, is there a benefit to using a smaller launch complex? But I was just like, can we get a 60-ton vehicle that launches 1.4 or 1.6 kilograms to orbit, 1.6 tons to orbit, sorry. And so I was really trying to get it in under 60. So that's kind of where a lot of this came from. And the castors are here because I tried making this fuel tank just straight up big enough, you know, where the whole thing just weighed close to 60 tons, like this. And it didn't work very well because oh, I don't have the launch clamps. That's why things are messing up here. Did I delete the launch clamps? What is going on? But yeah, that's why the numbers were weird on Delta V. But yeah, so this didn't work very well because look at the SLT. It's only 1.25. And that means that it's fighting gravity losses so much in the first, like, especially 30 to 60 seconds of the launch. It's barely going anywhere. And that just wastes so much fuel, and you don't get a lot of velocity out of it. And so by the time we were onto this stage, we were so low in the atmosphere that this one couldn't maintain attitude control. Which is interesting. And this one needs it has these little verniers use RCS control. It's very odd, but I turned them down because they're a little overactive normally. But yeah, all that to say, like, this was too low in the atmosphere for this to have proper attitude control, and it just, I think, was less efficient. So instead, I took out 8 tons. I took out 8 tons of fuel because these castors weigh about 4 tons each, and I was like, let's just try castors instead, which is not that crazy. Their ISP is lower at sea level, but not by a ton. Their dry mass ratio is 15%, and the dry mass ratio of this fuel is, well, fuel plus engine is how you have to do the math. So that's about 2 tons out of 40. So that is a better dry mass ratio. So these are less efficient, but the extra thrust makes up for it, because then it can get itself off the ground a little faster. So if you're ever struggling with a big rocket that doesn't have boosters, try taking fuel out of the main tank so that you don't weigh any more total weight, and see if it helps you get a more efficient launch profile. Because in this case, it very much helped me. It's worth thinking about. But yeah, I need to redo everything here. Unsave. Wait, no, I didn't do the avionics change. I need to save that. Early interplanetary 60, 200, resize to fit. Okay. And then I need to save that into my Skopos satellites. Now, as far as simulating this, let me show you a test version with just this part. And we'll go ahead and extend these so they're already out. And by the way, there's a UHF in here to communicate to Earth as well. And you need that because the L band and the C band, which are what the Skopos stations need, do not give you control. At least they're not supposed to. I found that that was actually a bug, that it was giving me control, but I reported the bug and it's been fixed, I think, in a version that's coming. So I'm going to rely on not using that bug. Anyway, what was I about to do? I think this is just good to go, right? Oh, I was going to show you the antenna planner for this. So that's UHF. So if we were to talk to one of the weaker stations, like Madrid, at 20, we'll call it 30 million meters, you can see that we still have connection just fine. In fact, 50 million meters? Oh yeah, we would, I probably have too many dBm on this, to be honest. If I go down to 26. Anyway, let me show you that this actually functions. So we will do a circular orbit at 25 million meters, inclination of 30 degrees, because that's about what we'll have from launch. And let me tell you, that inclination is actually helpful. Because these Skopos contracts don't require huge uptime, you'll notice that they only require a target of 1% availability. 1%. That means only a very small portion of your orbit needs to actually be connecting the two satellites. You know, if you have a 15-hour orbital period, 1% of that is, well, 0.15 hours, which is what, like 10 minutes? You know, like it's only a tiny amount of time. And so what's weird is the 30-degree inclination means that half the time, you know, you'll be at a worse position, but half the time you're at such a better position to connect the two. Because Moscow's at a very high latitude and Vladivostok is at a, like, pretty much all of the Skopos stations are at fairly high latitudes. So I find that having an inclined orbit has a better average connectivity. Which, now that I'm thinking about it, kind of doesn't make sense because half of your orbit is at the wrong inclination. So how is that better? My brain's really not liking that piece of information, now that I just said it. Because if you were in a flat orbit, well, I guess what it means is that the connected time at the high inclination is more than double the time you're not connected because of being at a low inclination. Like, let's say here you got an average of 10 minutes per day. Up here you might get an average of 30 minutes when you're sweeping past and you're at the right angles, but you'll only get that half the time, because half the time the planet will be aligned incorrectly with your orbit, so you'll be at the bottom and you won't have any connection. But 30 plus 0 divided by 2 is 15, which is better than your average of 10 when you were always in the... You're always in a mediocre position, right? If you were in an equatorial orbit. And I did test equatorial orbit at first because I thought that might be better. Even though, yes, I realized that would be more expensive to launch into an equatorial orbit. That wasn't really part of the experiment that I was doing when I was testing these satellites for connection. So anyway, let's go ahead and kind of just show what this... Oh, sorry, we need to get it facing the sun. Is that good enough? Yeah, our electric charge is fine. So anyway, you can go down. A couple things you can do. You can go to show config window for real antennas and turn off the cone if you don't want to see the cone of shame or where your connection goes. This is really useful though. You can see that the purple, the magenta cone is telling me the 3 decibel loss. And the kind of more lavender cone is telling me the 10 decibel loss, which is the maximum angle. So the fact that I have the whole planet within that means that, you know, if we have a strong enough connection, we will be able to connect to anywhere on the planet that we can see. So that's what that means. It's also useful if you had another satellite in orbit, you can think about, like, what could your phase angle be? Because, like, you couldn't connect to a satellite. Let me turn off time warp. Like if you imagine, you know, you're here and another satellite was here, you would not be able to connect to it with this radar. You would be able to connect to a satellite that's right here because it would be within that magenta or lavender kind of cone. Now it would be a huge pointing loss. You'd have a pointing loss of about 10 decibels because you're near the edge of that. But if you had a powerful enough connection, it would still work. So that's what that's all about. Anyway, you can turn that off if it's kind of annoying you. Then you can turn off the ComNet path, you know, with these buttons if you want to. And then finally, the Skopos related stuff, you can show kind of the Skopos stations by hitting show network, and then you can inspect these connections. And what's really cool about this, and let's kind of fast forward till we see one. Okay, here's one where we're okay. So here you can see we actually have connections. And what's cool is it shows you the wattage. And that wattage is actually based on the wattage that you need the Communitron to be able to output. So weirdly, this can also tell you how many extra decibels you have, because the wattage is directly related to, in the VAB, you know, you can see the active and the idle wattage. Yeah, the difference between these two numbers is how much power you have available. So here we have about 24 watts available. And it would show you in this right here, it says draws 4.5 out of 24.3. So it's really useful if you're noticing that the connection isn't working. It'll actually tell you, oh, if you had 27 watts, it would work right now. Now that's only for this specific position that your satellite's in, of course, but that's still really useful. So anyway, kind of for this, you just time warp and hope that it all works out, right? Like you're watching these numbers and you can see, okay, my Paris Moscow got like 6% from one good orbit, right? And now these other ones are starting to increase. See, there's another good one for the transatlantic. And so all you need to have is an average of 1% over a 90-day period, right? And so you get a lot of opportunities to grow this. And yeah, I mean, you can just test a few, but you can easily see with this satellite that like we're averaging out to 10% even on a lot of these. And so then that completes the contracts, but then you get new contracts, which are the maintenance contracts. So this is something that I didn't understand at first, and I don't know if I've talked about it yet. I think I mentioned it in one of the episodes, but these contracts continue to give you new requirements, basically. And so now you have to average over the course of a month, you know, an average connectivity of 1%. And so whatever orbit you're in, you need to make sure, you know, it's consistent enough that you get some connection every 7 days so that it can average out nicely. But yeah, and then at the end of this month, you'll notice yeah, 13%, 22% for Paris Moscow, 20%. So then if we fast forward to the end of the month, we should see these contracts get completed. Maybe. Did we lose power? Yeah. Shoot, I screwed up. Should have faced the sun at the beginning of the episode. These are not RCS ignited. There we go. Nope, sun needs to be down. Down, 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 down. Down, 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 down. There we go. Give me all... By the way, I had time or hyper warp on there, and that's why that went so fast. So now we'll see if... Out of SLA? I wonder what SLA means. Okay, so it's saying we regained connection there. And then, yeah, as you can see at the end of May, now we get these other contracts. So you get 480 funds and 1 little reputation point, which is, again, more than it looks. That's another 500 funds over the course of 10 years. Assuming you're not at max reputation, at least. But it's a way to help you stay at max reputation even. So yeah, there you go. So that's kind of how that works. And we know that this satellite needs to work for a year. And so I did test all the way, you know, to the end of a year here and make sure that the contracts kept getting completed at the end of every month. So all that to say, this craft does work properly. I think it's getting into orbit properly. So let's guarantee that real quick. And you can see I kind of added a launch platform doohickey. It does look a little weird with this thing at an angle, so I think I need to turn this like that. Yeah, there we go. Because I thought that looked kind of cool. So I did that. And I actually think I want this to be like lower down on the, something like that. Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and make sure our staging's right. It looks good. And let's simulate it. Not in orbit. And let's make sure our Skopos satellite works properly, and we will be able to start integrating this. Oh my god, we've been recording for 52 minutes. Guys, the Kerbal Space Program, I've played a lot of games in my day, and Kerbal Space Program might be one of the biggest time sucks I've ever experienced in my life. Civilization is another game that when I've been into it, it's a huge time suck as well. But I don't know. I think Kerbal Space Program might win. Factorio is addicting, but it doesn't feel like the time disappears when I'm playing Factorio the same way as Kerbal Space Program. Kerbal Space Program really makes me feel like, what happened to my time? Like it literally disappeared. So I'm going to go for Apo of 25 million. Current inclination. I think these are the rates I used for a test launch. And the longitude of ascending node doesn't matter. In the ascent settings, we're dropping solids. I should try 0.15. 0.2 was a little early. They kind of went wonky. And hot staging, we need mainly just the RD-119 to have a lead time of 1.6 seconds. So we'll do that there. And that should get everything working properly. So we'll go ahead and launch and see what happens. If you don't hit the engage autopilot button, nothing happens. I'll tell you that much right now. Oh, goodness. All right, let's try again. Go ahead and engage autopilot. Screenshot here. And I needed these little fins for roll control. I don't know what real rockets do for roll control that don't have fins on them. I don't know how they do roll control. Maybe they have multiple thrusters, and so the thrusters can gimbal around the center of mass. But when you only have a single thruster, you have no roll control. So that's why I have these little fins. Alright, let's see if these drop at a better time. Still a little iffy. But yeah, I mean, at this point, it's just so sleek looking. I just love how simple it is. And I like this shape for the fairing as well. But yeah, I mean, at this point, it's just a simple burn to the end of this stage at 60 kilometers. There was a little bit of a tip over there. I'm wondering if... Ooh, I tried to stop hyperwarping. Whoops. I'm wondering if I should slightly increase the booster pitch rate so we don't have that tip over. But this is claiming we're gonna have 1820 delta V left over, and my spreadsheet says I only need 1474 to circularize. So that means I have an extra 200 and something delta V, which is more than enough to account for variance. So anyway, the RCS needs to be turned on. That's the other thing that I find a little bit bothersome. What the heck is it doing? What the heck? That's new. Never seen it do that before. It's like it doesn't understand how to do the RCS on the RD-119. It's really weird. Like, it doesn't seem to be capable of just... See, look, what is it doing? Does it know what it's doing? It might. I think it's trying to catch up to the failed... Yeah, I think we're okay now. Anyway, the RD-119 is a little wonky. I don't know how I feel about that. It's just... It's because it doesn't use a gimbal, and it uses these little things instead, and it's simulated in a way that MechJeb doesn't love. But it's claiming we're still going to get into the orbit we want. It's still solving. We're still going to have a spare 1700 delta V, which is, like we said, more than enough. So let's just fast forward here to 10 seconds left. Whoa! What the heck was that? I think I had hot stage turned off and that really jacked that up. LOL. We gotta make sure we fix the hot staging on that. Let's see if this gets us to the proper numbers. Boom, 25 million meters. So then we've got a 3-hour time to Apo. And our power... Is that enough? What's the math on the avionics here? Is this not going to tell me how much power it takes? It doesn't look like it. I think it's taking like 60 watts. What's 60 watts? 60 times 3600. 60 watts times an hour is... calculating. 216 kilojoules. So I have about 2 megajoules, so I could do about 10 hours. So basically I'm just asking myself, do I need to point the solar panels at the sun for this? And no, we don't. We have like 10 hours. Now, important thing to note. The ignition chance... I have failures turned off. Damn. The ignition chance for this will not be ready to go until 2 hours-ish. I think that's what it said, or 2.5 hours from when it turns off. Or it's good to go right after you turn it off, or it needs a cooldown time of like over 2 hours. It's weird. And so there are certain orbits where you'd actually need to loop around twice before you could ignite this again. But yeah, let's just kind of warp to our apoapsis here while we tumble vigorously to our apoapsis. We just want to test the whole mission from start to finish. Okay, so there's that, and then we want to face prograde, so let me make sure all my RCSs are ignited. And then we want to prograde here. Did it not actually ignite? we go. Okay, so now we'll warp a couple more minutes. Wait, time to apoapse is 7 hours. Am I not at... What? Oh, we're basically at the apoapsis then. So we'll settle... Why did that automatically ignite? I guess it's because I have Z turned on. That's interesting. Next time I need to use H for my settling of the ullage and not turn on the throttle. Because the engine kind of already was ignited. For some reason I was thinking I would need to stage it again to do the ignition, but no, it was already ignited, so just having the throttle up meant that as soon as it could ignite, it did. So I need to be careful about that on the actual mission. But anyway, you can see our orbit's now good to go, and just to guarantee, I can't imagine it's really going to change anything, but I need to be down from the sun. Let's just make sure. I can also separate from that dead weight, so our RCS does a little better. Kill rotation. And at this point, I should be able to time warp just a few days here and see if we complete these contracts. The answer is yes. Sweet. All right. That is a successful simulation. We'll go ahead and draw it up. I don't know what happens to the time when I'm playing Kerbal Space Program. I don't know how this has already been an hour. It feels like we've done nothing. Okay, so what was I going to change? I needed to change the hot staging of Aegina to there. And then, honestly, I should turn on the RCS probably when I stage Aegina as well. So let's do that. And then what was the other change I needed to make? Was there another change? I don't think so. The RD-119 did weird things, but hopefully I'll remember to turn on RCS for separation and we'll be good to go. So yeah, that's it. The Locust 1. Let's get, whatchamacallit, decals on here. Wait, is that instructional? Yeah. Text decal. Throw the flag on there. And then this guy. Outline. Let's see, you're gonna be Locust. A little bit, let's see, a little bit more centered. And you're the Locust 1. There should be an extra space before that. And we need a little bit less crowded on the letters. And I think we want the color to be white. And then outline in blue. That looks kind of bad. Better with outline or without outline? I think I'll go without outline. And then I think we need like 30, negative 31 or 32. Yeah, there we go. All right, so there you go. The Locust one is ready to rumble, and it'll fit in our mid-satellites launch complex once we have 1961 orbital rocketry done. So that's one mission kind of set to go. We do need to modify the mid-satellites. Oops. Let's go ahead and do that now since we have the time. Go and modify that. And that takes care of all 4 of the Skopos contracts, which is going to be a lot of money, because each one of these is 57 just to complete it. That one's 76 for whatever reason. So that's a 220 reputation just to complete them. And then over the following year, they're going to provide me with another, I don't even know, 4 times 12, another 50 reputation, plus 50,000 money? No, is that right? 1 point of reputation, 500 funds. So if it's 50 reputation, it's gonna be about 25 grand of money. So that'll more than pay for the launch vehicle as well. So that's great. I should move 61 orbital rocketry up a bit. I will wait for power generation to finish though. Yeah, so grand plan wise, that takes care of designing television contracts. And orbital rocketry finishes in July. So July, we need to integrate television satellite. And that will allow us to do that. Okay, so now what are we on to doing? We did that part. I guess I need Earth Space High Perturbation Science Probe is what we want to design as well. So it feels like we can basically use what I just created for an Earth Space High Perturbation. Can I just do the Locust 2 here? And because as far as Delta V goes, Earth Space High is more like 40 million meters. I'll go 45 million to be safe. And that needs a total cost of 4 grand on top of the orbit, low Earth orbit. Why don't I just move this part to the side? And then, yeah, I mean, this is all we need to change. So we'll keep we'll ditch that. We'll add figure experiments, orbital perturbation into here. We do need inclination for this, let's not forget. So that's more expensive. So we're gonna launch that into space high. That is 2 bytes a second. So then for our antenna, I'm gonna replace with a slightly better one, which is U. And we can antenna plan yeah, let's go tech level 3, UHF. Okay, what about 60 million at the 50 stations? 15 kilobits. Okay. So we can drop that down until we're getting, I mean, at this point, I'm not really even saving anything. So let's go 20 dBm. I might as well be at tech level 2. Why is tech level 2 more maximum kilobits a second? Do you understand that? Why is UHF at tech level 3 giving me less bandwidth? I don't understand that. Well, anyway, tech level 2 is all we want here for the less power usage. And yeah, I mean, this is more than enough. I only need 16 bits per second, so we could do rate halvings multiple times again. So there you go, there's the antenna. The power can be way less because we only have 62 watts there. It does need to run for 10 years though. So maybe this isn't so crazy. Because if I want it to run for 10 years, these are going to be outputting only 18 watts, which is actually not enough. Weirdly. Because we're going to need 63 plus the antenna, which is another 8, which is 81. And how much power is the perturbation? Another 2. So 73 watts divided by 3. Basically 25 per panel. There we go. So that should do it for power, for literally forever. And I'm gonna lower the utilization of this guy a little bit further because we just really don't need much RCS here. So I'll go down to 20% there. And that is still less than our max weight for the Locust launch vehicle. So I'm pretty sure that guy is all we need as well for a lot of science over the course of the next 10 years. Did I miss anything? I don't think so. So now I did miss this part. There we go. All right, save under. I guess this is the Light Satellites program. Weirdly, I don't know. Feels weird to be saving different locusts in different categories, but let me simulate this, because we want to make sure it can get into the inclined orbit that we desire. It might not have enough delta V. I'm kind of relying on assumption here, and it really might not, because we need an inclination of 51 degrees. Early shutoff stage is 1. Last stage is 1. Engage autopilot. Alright, and then let's fix our hyperwarp so we can hyperwarp freely. Alright. Oh yeah, the solids drop time was a little off. What do I want that to be? 0.10? Something like that. Which I should probably take a note for that, right? Note. Locust. LV. Hot staging 1.6. Solids lead 0.1. Pitch rate or booster is at 50/0.8. Okay. Those are kind of the main numbers that I think we need to... And maybe we need to remember the QT5 and QA 3400. Because those, we'll change them for different launches, and then we'll have to change it back if we do this launch vehicle again. Okay. Ship notes. Oh, I can delete this one now. Delete file. Yes. Oh, turn on RCS quick before it does bad things. Why is this still here? List notes, notes, delete file, yes, escape. Okay, there we go. Alright, now I should be able to just fast forward here. I guess, can we be done at this point? Do I really need to simulate the rest of this? I already know the circularization maneuver at 45 million is only going to cost me 1464. And this is telling me, oh shoot. Whoops. I did that wrong. Oh. We are very tight on delta V. According to this, I'm going to be 7 delta V short, actually. Which, ironically, I will have enough RCS delta V to make up for that. Okay, so let's just see where this ends up. Turn off the autopilot. So 1484 at 44.6. That should work. Let's just warp help to Apo here. 8 times 60. And then we need to face prograde. Alright, and then I need to settle with H, the ol' ullage. There we go. Then I need to go Z. And then gotta watch that eccentricity shrink down. I'm gonna go into slow motion here. 27, 26, 25. I mean, really, we just need our periapsis to be above. What is it, 38 million is like the space low cutoff. The eccentricity kind of doesn't matter. So we are good to go now with about 100 spare delta V. So I should be fine. And then once we've disconnected, we still have 80 delta V of RCS. You know, if I needed to get a little bit further, we still could. So that all seems to work. The orbital perturbation. I need to make sure I start it. So let's go do that. But yeah, sweet. That's 2 successful designs in 1 episode, plus lots of talking about Skopos latitudes and whatnots. We do need to turn on the science here. There we go. Everything else should be good to go. Sweet. So the Locust 2 is good to go. So into our grand plan. So July, we're integrating television, satellite. Oops, sorry, that was probably loud. Oh, it's not in our list right now. It's really kind of tricky. How many days is it actually going to take us when we're tooled? Maybe 50 for each? Not really sure. So that means we're going to July, August, maybe September. Launch TV satellite, which is the Locust 1. Integrate Earth Space High. Perturbation, which is the Locust 2. So that's in September. And then the Lunar Science Collection we can design after that. Design Lunar Science Orbiter. So let's take that out. Hire to 900 scientists. I don't know if I want to do that quite yet. I'm going to move that to 1962. I feel like we probably hired too many scientists a little too early, and that's why we were so poor. You know, because I have 850 right now. And I think I maybe should have stopped at like 700 or 750. We're paying so much. I think we've been paying a little bit too much for scientists. Either that or I didn't do enough of the optional contracts to get more reputation. Because we are lacking a bit of reputation right now. Anyway, that seems like a reasonable plan. And Lunar Probes is already done. So basically, as soon as we... So I guess here's the question. Do I want my science orbiter... Okay, so I've got all that done. So now we're basically just down to time warp and integration and launch. But as far as planning goes, we're already done with this program, right? I can finish it whenever I want. And then we have, as soon as that's done, this is available, Uncrewed Lunar Surface Exploration. And there is a first Lunar Orbiter and Mapper contract that we're gonna have to do anyway. So the question I'm asking myself right now is, do I want my Lunar Science Orbiter to be this craft, completing this contract, or do I want it to be this optional contract? And I think the answer is I want it to be this one, because this I could probably do at breakneck. I think I feel pretty comfortable doing this in 3.75 years. So I'm thinking we take this one at breakneck. That does cost 1,800 confidence though. But I'm thinking if we take this at breakneck, we'll have a pretty easy time, and that's just a lot more money. 1650,000 rather than this one, which is only 2/3 of that. And this has been over the course of 6 years, where this is like per year. That's only 160 grand for the next year. And this one is at breakneck, double that, even in the first year. So that's just way more money. And I think I could complete probably all of these contracts with the science we already have, or with the science we'll be getting here in the next year. I don't think we'll actually need that much more. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm gonna get screwed over, but I think we're just gonna go for it. So, lunar probes, we're gonna complete the program. And part of the reason I'm doing this is because this also gives us a ton of reputation, which unfortunately only translates to money when we still have a need for reputation, which is going to be over soon, but let's do it. So that's done, and now we're going to do uncrewed at breakneck. We're going to accept that program. And now our funding is going to go through the roof. And then we'll do crewed orbit after we finish commercial applications. Which shouldn't take that long. And yeah, now our reputation is much higher and our funding is much higher. So our balance is plus 502. That feels like less than it should be. I guess I was used to having 3 programs and now we only have 2. So having 2 programs kind of is the same as having this one by itself. Okay. Still not huge funding, but it's something. Do we need to do anything else right now? Okay, let's actually read our new contracts. First lunar landing, literally just land on the moon. Doesn't matter how you do it, just get it done. And this one is lunar surface exploration. And this wants us to do, yeah, see, this is what we wanted to do anyway. So I'm really glad I made the decision because we were totally going to do video imaging. Oh, I don't know about video imaging too. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That throws a wrench in our plans. When do we get video imaging too? Please tell me it's this. Yes. Okay. Interesting. So that means we need to fast track our interplanetary era science because we literally can't do the lunar orbiter until that's done. So after 1961 orbital rocketry, we want interplanetary era science to be top-notch. And it can't go above that because that's a requirement for this. So I think that is good to go. We're not going to be done until 62. Ugh. I'll probably hire more scientists with some of my money between now and then. Yeah, I think we're in a pretty good spot plan-wise. So July, integrate the television satellite. Sometime in probably September, we'll launch that. We'll start integrating the Earth Space High Perturbation Orbiter. We'll design the Lunar Science Orbiter at the same time so that then, which might be Locust 3? It might be back to more the Cobalt. Locust 3 or Cobalt. It probably will need to be Cobalt, just having a heavier launch vehicle, but maybe we'll be able to get a Locust in there. And then once 1962 hits, we'll hire more scientists. I might hire more scientists before then, because it is only April, and now we have more funding. So maybe I hired a 900 scientist right now. Interesting. Integrate and launch Lunar Science Orbiter. Design. Integrate and launch Lunar Lander. We want to get that done in 62 if we can. But the Lunar Science Orbiter literally can't even be integrated until August of 62. I might need to do the Lunar Lander before the Lunar Science Orbiter, now that I think about it. Because I can probably land on the moon without having the science experiment, whereas I need the science experiment before I can do this. There's literally no way around that. So, I don't think there's much I can do before August, other than hire more scientists. But yeah, the TV satellite's going to be good. That'll help bring in some cash flow. And keep our reputation padded a bit. And then we can start on... Let's see, if we're launching that in September... We'll be taking the program for orbital crewed orbit. So we're probably going to need to upgrade the astronaut complex. Suborbital training. So after we launch that, why don't we plan on September, October, upgrade astronaut complex to level 2. All right, let's plan on that. And yeah, I think we're going to have to call it an episode now. I know this has mostly been planning and simulation episode, but exciting stuff nonetheless. I love me some Kerbal Space Program. I hope you guys do too. And as always, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next one. You know what? No, I'm sorry. Come on. I've had 2-hour episodes. Let's just launch the dang thing. We already know what we're doing. I think I was worried there would be more steps between now and then, but I don't have any steps between now and then. So I think we're just good to go. All right, we're gonna auto hire to 900 scientists after we have 10 grand, and we're just gonna warp. Wait, what? Alright. It feels so weird to warp 78 days. A lot of days. Feels like I did something wrong. Wasting so much time. Not integrating or launching anything. Uh-oh, why are we stopping the warp? We have alarm clock going off? We do. Valentin Glushko. See, this is what I was worried about. You know, I say, oh, I'll just do the launch, but then, you know, we have all this other stuff we have to deal with. So... I don't like that. Is that gonna make me money or lose me money? Minus 12% funds for salary, but minus 5% funds from program funding. So my salaries are $17.55. My salaries are more than my program budgets right now, which means if I can cut salaries more than I lose from budgets, then that is certainly a positive gain, and it's a 12 versus 5%, so that's a huge difference as well. And we get 5% reputation from contracts. So Sergey Korolev, you are now my administrator. All right. Anyway, back to warping. I think I want to auto hire another 50. I'll just manually hire another 50 or 100. I'm just gonna hire 100. Screw it. 1,000 researchers, easy. Get to 61 orbital rocketry. Go ahead and not design. Thankfully, we already did the designing. Go ahead and launch the craft. Locust 1, open. Skopos, Locust 1. Tooling, tool all. Uh-oh. I was not prepared for this eventuality. The unlock cost is 194 grand. What? So I assume that's mostly the Aegina. That's 52 grand. And that one is 70 grand. That's only 100. Where's the rest of this coming from? Do I have to pay for both of these? No, that doesn't. Why is there still a 70 grand unlock? What costs 70 grand to unlock? Still says 72 grand. Oh dear. Avionics procedural. So which avionics is it wanting me to? Is it this one? Probably this one. Yeah. I think I can survive on 1.7 ton. Slightly more power usage. I think that's okay. Then we incur a tooling cost again, but the unlock cost went down. Why is it still 35 grand? Oh, I'm using... Oh no. How different is the Delta V? 3277, or let's see, 12630 versus... It's 160 different. I just literally can't afford it. Yikes. I can get a smidge more Delta V out of it by making this longer. Yeah, 30 more Delta V. That incurs a tooling cost. Okay, if I make these tanks slightly longer, to the point where there's no tooling cost, you can get a little bit of that Delta V back. Okay. I think this is good. Wow. And I'm just gonna trust that we didn't goof it up too much. It's gonna be funny when this is like 5 Delta V short of what we need, but I can launch it to a 24 million meter orbit if we need to. Like, that'll be fine. So, oof. Okay, well, that was a lot more expensive than I anticipated. I thought our unlock credit was just always going to be enough. I wasn't even considering it. That was unwise of me. Because how does unlock credit work? It's like when I research one of these, it gives me a certain amount of unlock credit. Apparently. 10494. But is it 10494 for all of them? It seems to be. Just per research. I don't know. All I know is I'm going to run out of money. But the important part is we are now integrating, so I need to move staff over. Engineers. To the mid satellites. Okay, so it's a 45-day build, and that gets us to Locust 1 being done. Roll it out. Warp to sunrise. And now that my unlock credit is so low, I need to start building up some more actual funding. All right, let's actually launch. Can't believe I was going to end the video without a mission finished. I just thought we would have gotten so much more done in this episode. It really, whoa, what is that going on there? Just cover that up. All right, this is an exciting moment. Get a little screenshot here of the Locust 1. Ready to go on the launch pad. Alright, now, as far as ascent guidance, this is our 25 mil. Last stage is 1, early shutoff is 1. And we shouldn't have to change anything else. So I believe we are good to go here. So we'll go ahead and launch after engaging the autopilot. Nope, current inclination. Whoops. Try again. All right. Launch in 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition. And we have liftoff. Locust 1 is away. Did I screw some up? No. No. Doesn't seem to have as much roll control. I wish this did. Right. Those are off and safe. I never quick saved. I should do that now. Okay, now we'll hyperwarp to 60 kilometers. Failure, what's our failure chance here? Time between failures is an hour, so it's a 2 minutes out of 60 minutes, about 1 in 30 chance here. Not my favorite number, but livable. Oh. Turn on RCS. I feel like 1600 delta V, is that enough? Yeah, we only need, to circularize at 25 million, we need 1470. Okay. So we're about 130 delta V to spare here, assuming we don't have a failure. This is our first launch of the 119, by the way. Why does it show as already having 7,000 or 2,000 data units? Maybe we got data units from the RD-0109, or the 0105, I guess. That must be it. So mean time between failures is 2.5 hours. Pretty dang consistent. I like to see that. Now, our Aegina, not so much. There's a 10% mission failure on the ignition alone for this thing. So, because we'll have to ignite it twice. So we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna time warp here, so we can get the rest of this burn done. Seconds to go. 50, no failures. 30. 10. Slow things down a bit. Quick save. Successful hot staging and separation and ignition. So now we're down to a 5% chance of failure. Plus whatever the failure during runtime is. But that's only like 1 in 70 or 80 or 90 even. Because it's only 1 minute of total burn time, or less than that. Alright. Things are looking good for our Locust. Alright. That's close enough. You don't have to do RCS for that. Okay. So now I should be able to add a maneuver, snap it to Apo, hit the circularize button, and then I should be able to go to the man plan and just execute the node. I mean, I'm gonna quick save because I have a feeling that it might not work, but I'm pretty sure I can just do that and we're good to go. And 10 minutes before the node, it should face us in the correct direction. There it goes. I have more than enough HTP. This is one of those missions that could have been spin stabilized for sure, but the problem is the solar panels just... I didn't want to cover the whole thing in so many solar panels that it, you know. Anyway, is it going to ullage properly? Answer seems to be yes. Oh, wow. It actually is measuring the... I can't use words. It's measuring the propellant stability and making sure it stays at 100. And it's just using a tiny amount of propellant, so I'm not really worried about it. 10 milliliters a second. Okay, should start burning here in like 6 seconds. Successful ignition. And cut the throttle. Boom. 0.001 eccentricity. Oh, I guess I'd have to go the other direction if I wanted to be more perfectly circular. But we are good to go. So now I will separate and we will point down from the reference of the sun for full solar power. And with that, we are good to go. It's kind of a cool pick like this, I think. Sweet. Do we need to do anything else? I don't think so. I believe our Skopos network is now set up. Let me just make sure this one's enabled. It's pointed at Earth. So everything's good to go. So now I can go back to the Space Center. Sweet. Okay, now we're going to call it the end of the episode. Thank you guys for your patience. Now we will have these 4 contracts completed. And once those are complete, we can finish the program. And then once that program is finished, we can start the crewed orbital program. But for now, I think we'll just call it an episode. We've already talked a lot about the grand plan, so we'll kind of be done with that for now. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next one.